Good morning. I am Sri Lakshmi, pursuing my B.Ed at St.Ann's College of Education, and my main methodology is biological science. So today we are going to discuss about the fluid connective tissue. So what is a fluid connective tissue? Let us see in this topic. As this is the winter season, we feel cool. So why do we feel cool? Because our body maintains a particular temperature. It tries to keep the blood flow at a particular temperature, and do you know the normal body temperature is maintained at 37 degrees centigrade or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So why the body has to be maintained at this temperature? All the metabolic activities and the functions to perform well at this particular temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 37 degrees centigrade. So during winters, our surrounding temperature falls below 20 degrees centigrade. So if the temperature, the surrounding temperature falls below this temperature, we normally feel cool, and our mind sends signals that to cover our body with sweaters and keep our body warm. So the blood has to be maintained in the body at 37 degrees centigrade. And apart from this, when you are sick, when you are suffering from fever, what do? You consult a doctor. So as you consult a doctor, he suggests some paracetamol, and then within 3 to 4 days you may get well. But if the fever still persists and you are not well, so the doctor, when you again visit a doctor, he suggests you for a blood test. So why does the doctor suggest for a CBP? CBP is an abbreviation for complete blood picture. So what does this complete blood picture indicates? So why the doctor performs diagnosis according to the blood reports? So in order to know this, let us see about the blood and the composition of blood. So do you know the blood is the source, and it is the source of indication for our wellness and also the illness. So why the blood is the source of indication for the wellness or the illness? So let us see as we are going to discuss about this topic. So the blood contains different types of cells as well as a fluid. So what does the fluid contains of? So let us see this. Actually, blood is a liquid connective tissue, and it consists about 8 to 10% of a body weight. So the blood, it is a red colored liquid fluid, and it consists about 8 to 10% of a body weight. So, and it is thick and heavier than the water, and it is a viscous fluid. Do you know there is an organ which pumps blood to different organs in our body? Yes, this important organ is the heart. So the heart pumps the blood through the arteries to different organs in our body, and the exchange of substances occur between blood and the organs, and the exchanged substances, they are retained at the organs, and the waste products are carried back to the heart again through the blood. The blood vessels that carry blood to the heart are called the veins. So blood, it is a liquid connective connective tissue. It is a fluid connective tissue. Yes. So let us see the composition of blood. So when the blood is withdrawn from a person's blood vessels, and when it is collected into the tube, it is called as the whole blood. And when this blood is being subjected to centrifugation, so the centrifugation is a process where you separate the soluble substances based upon their densities. So upon the action of the centrifugal force, the substances are being sedimented based upon their densities. So after the centrifugation process, the blood in the tube, which is the whole blood, has been separated into two different layers, as you can see in this test tube. Yes, the upper supernatant pale yellow color liquid indicates the plasma. So the plasma is a straw colored fluid, and the sedimented part is the blood cells which are soluble in the blood. Yes, and apart from the blood cells, there are many more substances in the blood which are dissolved in it. Okay. So what the plasma is? Plasma is a pale straw colored fluid, and it constitutes about 55% of the whole blood, and it is made up of water, but still it is heavier than water, and it is also viscous. And the plasma contains different substances which are soluble in it. So what are the different substances that are soluble in the plasma? So plasma contains nutrients like amino acids, proteins, vitamins, hormones, enzymes, etc. So all these are essential by the body and are required by the body. And apart from this, it also contains the waste products like urea, lactic acid and the salts. So all these waste products, after they are being exchanged from the organs, they are sent into the blood, and the blood carries these along with it, these waste products. So how are these waste products removed from the blood? There is a particular organ which filters these waste products from the blood. Yes, that organ is the kidney. So kidney plays a major role in filtering the blood and supplies this blood again back to the heart, where again the heart pumps the blood to the other organs through arteries. Then next, let us see the other cells. Now till now we have seen about the plasma. Now we are going to see the different cells in the blood. So as you look at this picture, this is the artery, cross section of an artery, and as you look at the cross section of an artery, you can see here different types of cells. The one among them is the red blood cells, which are also known as erythrocytes, and the other are called as the white blood cells or the leukocytes. So, and apart from this, we also have the other cells called the blood platelets or the thrombocytes. So we are going to look into the function of each of these cells. Now as we look into the red blood cells are the major portion of the blood cells. They are about 5 to 5.4 millions of cells per cubic millimeter of the blood in males, whereas in females they are about 4 to 4.5 millions of blood of these red erythrocytes per cubic millimeter. Yes, and then do you know the shape and structure of the cell? The erythrocytes, they are denucleated, that is, they do not contain nucleus. And apart from nucleus, they also lose their organelles, cell organelles like mitochondria, Golgi complex, and also other cell organelles. So why actually in the previous class we have discussed that the cells contain cell organelles, and we have seen the role of each cell organelle and how they are important for the cell. But the erythrocytes, being the important and major portion of the blood cells, they lack all the cell organelles including the nucleus. Then what is the importance of these erythrocytes in the blood? How do they play a major role in the blood? The erythrocytes, since they lose their nucleus as well as the other cell organelles, their shape has been changed. They are not circular, but they are flattened, disc shaped, and apart from that they are biconcaved on both the sides. They are biconcaved on both the sides. So why they are biconcave? What is the necessity for a red blood cell to lose all these organelles? So initially when the cells, actually these red blood cells, they are formed in the bone marrow. Now what is a bone marrow? Bone is made up of two kinds of salts which are called the calcium phosphate and the calcium carbonate. So the bone is made up of calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate, and these salts are being secreted by certain type of cells. They are called as the osteocytes. These osteocytes present in the hollow part of the bone, which is the central part of the bone. So the hollow part of the bone contains a red color pulp called bone marrow. So as you look at the cross section of the bone, there is a soft pulp within the bone, and this pulp is called as the red bone marrow. It plays a major role in production of the red blood cells. So the red bone marrow is a very important part of the bone, and it, apart from producing the osteocytes, it also produces the red blood cells. So it is a site of origin for the red blood cells. Then these red blood cells, when they are produced during the immature stage, they contain all the cell organelles like that of the other cells. They even also contain the nucleus. But as during the developmental stages, during the maturation process, they lose all these cell organelles. Now why do they lose all these cell organelles? It is because they lose all the cell organelles, they attain the shape like a disc shape with biconcavity on both of the sides. This is because in order to accommodate hemoglobin. What is hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is a respiratory pigment. So the erythrocytes, the main function of the erythrocytes is to accommodate as many molecules of hemoglobin as possible and to provide space for them on its surface. So in order to increase the surface area of the erythrocytes, their shape has been modified to a biconcaved disc shaped cells. Yes. Then the hemoglobin, it is a respiratory pigment. So what is the role of hemoglobin? As the hemoglobin binds to the erythrocyte surface, and this hemoglobin has a affinity towards the oxygen. So why it is called as a respiratory pigment? Because it carries oxygen. So as the hemoglobin binds with the oxygen, it forms a compound called oxyhemoglobin, and this oxyhemoglobin, it is carried along with the, as they get attached to the surface of the RBCs, they are now carried along with the bloodstream in the arteries, and this blood is being supplied to all the parts of the body through the arteries. And at the site of the tissues near the cells, the exchange of the products occurs. So as the exchange occurs, the oxygen is being transferred to the cells of the tissues. So in that way, the oxygen is being liberated. As the oxyhemoglobin is an unstable compound, it liberates the oxygen, and the oxygen is being supplied to the cells, and the hemoglobin is retained back onto the erythrocytes. So this is how the erythrocytes play a major role. So the major role of the erythrocytes is to accommodate the hemoglobin and to supply oxygen to every cell present in the body. Next type of cells in the blood cell, among the blood cells, are the leukocytes. So what are the leukocytes? The leukocytes are also called as the white blood cells. So here in the picture you can see the white blood cells, the amoeboid cells. That means they do not have any specific shape. So they modify their shape. So what is the major role of the leukocytes in the blood? There are different types of leukocytes in the blood based on their functions, and they are classified into two major categories as agranulocytes or agranular cells and granulocytes or granular cells. So what are the agranular? This classification is based on the presence and absence of the granules in the cytoplasm. Now next we are going to see what are the agranulocytes. They are further classified into two types of cells. One are the lymphocytes and the other the monocytes, and they constitute the total number of leukocytes in our blood. They constitute about 5,000 to 9,000 cells per millimeter cube in the blood. So what the function of the agranular cells is, they are actually big in size, and they are big in size, and they possess a nucleus, whereas the erythrocytes, they do not possess a nucleus, but the leukocytes, both the agranular and the granular leukocytes, they possess the nucleus, and the nucleus is very big, and it occupies the whole area of the cells in case of lymphocytes. And the cytoplasm you can see towards the corner, towards the periphery of the nuclear membrane. Yes, and these lymphocytes, they produce antibodies. They provide the first line of defense mechanism in our body. Yes, and they produce the antibodies, and they provide the immunity to our body. Whereas the monocytes, they constitute about 3 to 8% of the total leukocytes, and the nucleus, there is a difference between the shape of the nucleus between the lymphocytes and the monocytes. And in the monocytes, the nucleus, it has a notch towards one end, thus it gives the appearance of a kidney. So the nucleus is in the form of a kidney, and here the cytoplasmic amount is more when compared to that of the lymphocytes. And the monocytes, they provide immunity to our body by performing the phagocytic function. So they act as the phagocytes. So what is this phagocytic function? The monocytes, they engulf the parasitic organisms, the bacteria, whichever that enters our body, and they lyse the nucleus. It releases lytic enzymes, endolytic enzymes, that help in lysing the cell membrane of the phagocytic cells. So thus they provide defense against the invading microorganisms. Then next, the granular lymphocytes. So what are the granular leukocytes? They are again classified into three main types. They are basophils, neutrophils, eosinophils. The eosinophils, they are otherwise known as acidophils. So let us look at each of this type of cell in detail. The eosinophils, and the classification of these cells is mainly done on the basis of the nature of the chemical nature of the cytoplasm. So let us look at the eosinophils first. So the other name for the eosinophils is the acidophils, and their cytoplasm is alkaline in nature, and they possess nucleus which is bilobed, and the granules which are present in it, they are responsible for providing the defense mechanism against the invading pathogenic microorganisms. And next, the basophils. The basophils, the cytoplasm is acidic in nature and it contains granules, and these granules are in the cytoplasm. The granules that are present, they are pharmacologically active substances. These granules, they release pharmacologically active substances, and these substances, they provide the defense line of defense mechanism when the invading microorganism reaches the body. And now, apart from this, it also provides during the inflammation. For example, if an inflammation occurs on your skin, so as the inflammation occurs, at the site of inflammation, the skin becomes pink in color, and also this color change is due to the increased flow of blood towards that site. So as the blood flows to this site, the basophils also reach along with the bloodstream, and there the basophils, as they contains these granules as they release the pharmacologically active substances, these substances, they interact with the chemical substances that are responsible for causing the inflammation, and thus it fight against these toxic substances and neutralizes the reaction. So in that way they are helpful in providing the immune system. And then next, the neutrophils, the cytoplasm is neutral and the nucleus can be multi-lobed, 3 to multi-lobed. And then they also provide the defense mechanism by performing the phagocytic function. So these are the different types of leukocytes in the bloodstream. So a doctor, when he asks for a blood test, so he checks the levels of these leukocytes, that is the acidophils, basophils and the neutrophils, and also the monocytes and the lymphocytes. So all these cells, they are present at a particular level in the blood, but when an infection occurs, their number in our blood increases. So this indicates that our body has been infected by a pathogen, and thus the doctor asks for a blood report when we fall sick. So can you now believe that our blood is the source for the identification of our wellness and illness? So apart from this, the last category is the thrombocytes. So in this picture, as you see, these are the erythrocytes, the white cells are the leukocytes, and the shapeless, the amoeboid type cells, they are the blood platelets. They do not possess the nucleus. So these are the denucleated cells. So the blood cells, the erythrocytes and the thrombocytes, they are denucleated, whereas the leukocytes, they are nucleated cells. They are originated in the bone marrow, and they are destroyed in the lymphoid organs. So let us see the role of the thrombocytes. So the thrombocytes, they are involved in the formation of clot. So what is a blood clot? As you are injured, at the site of injury, the blood vessel ruptures and you start bleed. Yes, but do you bleed throughout? No, the bleeding does not occur for a long time. So within 5 to 10 minutes, the blood clots and the bleeding stops. So how does a blood clot occur? This is due to the thrombocytes. So the thrombocytes may play a major role in formation of a clot. So how this clot is being formed? Let us see. So when we look at the mechanism of blood clotting, the blood platelets, they produce 13 different kinds of factors. So let us see what are the different kinds of factors that are involved in blood clotting. The blood platelets, at the site of injury, when the blood flows, the blood platelets produce platelet factor 3. And apart from this, the injured tissue, it produces thromboplastin. So the blood platelets, as they produce platelet factor 3, and the injured tissue, as it produces thromboplastin, these two substances, they combine in the presence of calcium ions and produce prothrombinase or thrombokinase. And this prothrombinase or the thrombokinase is responsible for triggering this clotting mechanism. And next, the prothrombin, which is a phospholipid which is present in the blood, in the presence of prothrombinase enzyme and in the presence of calcium ions, it forms thrombin. And this thrombin acts as an enzyme for the next reaction. So in the next reaction, the fibrinogen, which is also a phospholipid which is present in the plasma of the blood, and this fibrinogen is in the soluble form. But after this reaction, in the presence of thrombin, it converts to fibrin, which is an insoluble form. So the fibrinogen, which is in the soluble form, in the presence of thrombin enzyme, it converts into fibrin, which is insoluble form. And then next, the fibrin of the previous reaction, in the presence of in the polymerization reaction, and this fibrin it is a thread-like substance, and this fibrin, it polymerizes and forms into fibers. So these fibers, they are insoluble in the plasma, and they form a large mesh-like structure, and this network of fibers in this network of fibers at the site of injury, they form a mesh, and as the mesh is formed, there is no way for the cells to pass through, and hence the blood cells, they get entrapped in this network, and thus a clot is formed. And after the clot is formed, and this clot has to be formed within 5 minutes. So after the clot is formed, a pale yellow color fluid oozes out at that site, and this fluid is known as the serum. So the blood clot thus helps in preventing the loss of blood from our body. So imagine if a blood does not clot, what happens? If the blood does not clot, you will be losing the blood from the ruptured blood vessel. Do you know that a human blood contains about 5 to 6 liters of blood? If the blood is lost from the body, it leads to coma and finally to death. So there are also certain cases, a particular disease known as hemophilia. Are you aware of it? The hemophilia, which is also known as bleeder's disease. So it is actually a genetic problem, a genetic disorder. The overall factors that are responsible for this mechanism of blood clotting are about 13 factors, and these factors are produced by the platelet cells. So if any one among these 13 factors is being lacked, if a person does not possess any one among these factors, this leads to the blood, it does not lead to a blood clot, and hence the person loses blood. So this it is called as hemophilia, which is also called as bleeder's disease. So thus we have come to know about the different cells and the composition of the blood, which upon centrifugation, the whole blood, it separates into plasma and different types of cells, and those cells are the red blood cells, erythrocytes, white blood cells, leukocytes, and the thromboplasts or the blood platelets. So all these are very essential and important in a person's life. And also through this we have come to know that blood is the source for the identification of our wellness or illness. Yes, and then apart from this, we have seen apart from these cells, the plasma also contains other substances like the nutrients, which are hormones, proteins, amino acids, enzymes. So even these are maintained at a particular level. For example, if the glucose is not maintained at a level of 40 mg per ml, if it is higher, it is called as hyperglycemia, and if it is lower, it is called as hypoglycemia. So if the glucose levels decreases, it also leads to a coma and finally to death. And if the glucose levels are high, it leads to diabetes. So blood gives a complete picture of a wellness as well as a illness. And blood is also called as fluid connective tissue because it connects all the systems in a body, and apart from that, it contains different cells and also provides nutrients as well as gases. So the exchange of gases between the cells and the blood also occurs, and oxygen is being supplied to all the parts, all the cells in the organs through the blood. So this is all about the story of a blood. Thank you.